JC, alam naman natin na ang energy industry ay isa sa mga uso ngayon at napakalaking industriya sa ating bansa, lalo na pagdating sa usapin ng climate change.
Yes.
At syempre, kailangan natin ng additional information at mga paglilinaw tungkol sa detalye, tungkol sa topic na ito. Kaya ngayong umaga mapala tayo at makakasama natin si Alexander Ochs, ang Climate Change and Energy Program ng World Watch Institute, at si Commissioner Heherson Alvarez ng Commission on Climate Change. Magandang umaga po sa inyo.
Magandang umaga.
Good morning, Alexander. Good morning, Commissioner.
Yes. So maybe we could start
Yes.
off by talking about the problem of climate change in the Philippines. Kasi what we hear is that it's a growing problem globally, but we want to focus on this problem as it affects the Philippines. So how big is the effect of climate change for the Philippines?
We're the third most vulnerable country.
Yes.
That means that if you survey the whole world and there's going to be destruction, the third to be destroyed is going to be the Philippines because of our tiny strips of land,
Yes.
archipelagic, we're surrounded by water, and the typhoons, the last to visit us was a 230-mile typhoon. And 50 years ago, we only had typhoons of about 70 kilometers per hour.
All right.
So the cost of life, this destruction of property is tremendous. 10% of GDP goes because of these typhoons. So we should be in the forefront. And that is why Dr. Ochs is with us. In the battle, in the war against carbon, we should be able to battle carbon and perhaps become a model. I'd like to be able to have low carbon and then zero carbon eventually, because there are many opportunities for us to use alternative fuels, sikat ng araw, tubig, biomass, and of course geothermal. In many countries they have this, but here we have it in practical abundance. Kaya walang dahilan, kailangan yan ang gamitin natin.
Maximize, kumbaga.
Maximize at para hindi marumi ang ating hangin.
Yes.
At kasama tayo sa daigdig na bawasan niyang nakaririma rin. Yung perjuisyong karbono yan, yan talagang dahilan eh. Yung lumabas na government report ng IPCC, mga 200 scientists na nag-aral dyan, I was telling them 200 scientists processed this and they gave the report. It's a 36-page report now, a summation of a 600-page report. It reaffirms the fact that this is a human-made disaster. It's not one of those acts of nature or acts of God.
Yes.
Dahil sa pagbubuga natin ng carbon, and now we're trying to have, the President has given the mandate to us, to the Carbon Change Commission, and last July, I met this young fellow in a forum with climate institutes and our friends there at the tripartite conference in Doha. And I said, we should invite you to the Philippines. And he readily came. He came last July 26. We gathered the relevant agencies, DNR, transport, and explained.
All right. Dr. Ochs, we know that the Philippines is the third most vulnerable in the world. But given this, what is the global situation of climate change? Who are the carbon producers? Who are the recipients of the disasters?
So, I want to start by saying that if we talk about climate change being something that's happening at some distant time in the future, and a generational issue, we really don't get it. Climate change is already happening. We have warmed by almost a degree Celsius since pre-industrial times, and you start seeing the impacts everywhere. You see them by melting ice, by sea level rise, by storms becoming more and more, not just more frequent, but also more intense. And as the Senator pointed out, very unfortunately, Philippines is one of the countries that will be hit the hardest or are already being hit the hardest.
Yes.
Through storms, through sea level rise, through floods, through droughts in other areas. So our climate is changing and we can document this now. It's not something that's a theory that's happening in the future. That's a first thing that I want to mention that's really important. Now, where does it come from? It comes from many of our activities. It comes from driving cars that use petroleum. It comes from burning coal to produce power. And we do this worldwide. Of course, it's important to distinguish between the different countries and the different possibilities that we have. So one, who causes the most, and second, who has the best opportunities to really transition away from it. And there's really a big difference here. The average American produces a lot more greenhouse gases, a lot more climate-altering gases than the average Filipino. And the average Filipino uses a lot more than the average African south of the Sahara, right? So there are differences. So if you only approach it from a, so to speak, a justice moment, you know, you could lean back and say, like, so what do I have to do with it? But that's not helpful. Because if we all do this, nothing's going to happen.
Yes.
And I'm saying this a lot these days that I'm here in the Philippines. This story for your country, in my view, and we've discussed this a lot, and I think the Senator and the Climate Change Commission now agrees with this, it has all the subject of a drama, of a novel, and you deciding whether it's going to have a happy end or not. The science tells us it is very dramatic. Very dramatic. The impacts are not going to be something to laugh about. This is going to be a very, very serious thing that will cause deaths for people. It will cause the ecosystems to be in extreme problems. But there is a way out of this, and the way out of this is clean technologies, is clean energies. And you have it here. You're not just one of the most threatened countries, you're also one of the countries that has by far the best potential. So even if other countries like China or the United States produce more greenhouse gases, you can become a model country and you can put the pressure up on them to show, like, see, we have done it with far more limited resources, but we have been able to establish this. And so you can try to encourage other countries, encourage them, but also put pressure on them to actually change themselves.
Talking of models now, we have a beautiful island here, which is a model of environmental sustainability, Palawan.
Yes.
Palawan, which has won awards because of Tubataha, of the underground river. And last 20 years ago, when I was in the Senate, we crafted a law. It's called the Strategic Environmental Plan for Palawan, which is a very comprehensive program of protecting the marine system and the terrestrial system of Palawan. And now there is a program by the new governor to put up a coal system. And there's, of course, resistance, and there's every reason why Palawan should be kept pristine. Well, Dr. Ochs will tell us, he's an authority on this, that actually coal is not cheap. It's going to be expensive. You'll have to build a grid system there. And plus the fact that it's not only expensive in installing it, but it's going to be harmful to the health of the people there, to the marine resources, to the total environment. And that is precisely the opposite of what we want the Philippines to do. There's a council, a Sustainable Development Council in Palawan, and they passed on everything that's done in Palawan. If you're putting up a hotel, they'll have to assess whether this hotel is going to be useful to the environment, to the tourism industry. And this is where the protest is coming in, because we want to keep Palawan as a model of environmental achievement. And I think in the pathway that towards sustainable development that the World Watch Institute is helping us with, Palawan could be shown in the micro, because we are taking about 20 provinces. Dr. Ochs will be doing a lot of matching in 20 provinces. But Palawan could be shown as the first model of success in sustainable development on low carbon and avoiding the use of fossil fuel. And there's a lot of opportunity. There's an opportunity for sunshine, there's opportunity for water, there's an opportunity for wind, biomass. And why go into coal? So that modeling cannot only be will not only be in Palawan if we show it in Palawan as the first model, but in the first 20 provinces that we're seeking to be able to build this kind of low carbon to zero carbon.
You do need, at this point in time, in my view, you need champions. We can't move all at the same time. There's vested interests in all countries to keep the status quo. You know, we are where we are today, not because somebody sat down 100 years ago and thought about, like, you know, how can we come up with the most stupid system, you know, that kills people, you know, that's dirty, destroys our river, you know, kills our fish. You know, we are where we are today because these technologies were available. They were seen, at least, at relatively cheap. And the alternatives were not there. But today they are there. So what we need is, within our countries, champions like Senator Alvarez and many others in this country who have understood that there needs to be a paradigm shift. It's not true that just continuing like we do is the cheaper way. You know, 10% in this country of the GDP, every year, 10% of every dollar, every peso, every money that's being made, 10% are being spent on the import of fossil fuels, are sent out of the country. Why? If you have the domestic energy resources here,